A former female priest who spent more than 2 decades in the Episcopal Church is now speaking out after being defrocked because she embraced another faith. Today, Holmes Redding calls herself both a Christian and a Muslim. Dan Harris reports on this woman's test of faith.
Holmes Redding was an Episcopal priest for 25 years until a radical test of faith. Several years ago, while she was mourning the death of her mother, she was trying out an Islamic meditation technique that she learned in an interfaith class. And that, she says, is when it happened.
It came with such clarity and such power that I could understand it as nothing else but an invitation from God.
In fact, she says it was Jesus himself who led her to Islam.
You think Jesus led you to become a Muslim?
Yes. Yes.
You're laughing.
Because I know it doesn't make sense to people.
Now, Redding not only prays in church, but she also prays 5 times a day to Allah.
In Islam, Jesus is viewed as a prophet.
Yes.
Not as the Son of God.
Yes, you're right.
So yours is a radical rethink of the Christian scriptures, a rethink that a lot of people would call heretical.
Yes, and do, loudly.
This spring, the Episcopal Church revoked Redding's right to be a priest.
Being defrocked, I would imagine, was a pretty traumatic experience.
Yes. That's an understatement.
I'm very, very glad to be here today. I'm always glad to be here. I just soak in the spirit of this place whenever I have the good fortune to be here. And it strengthens me on my path, I must say. People ask me all the time, I get little messages on Facebook from across the world. How do you do this? How did this happen? A Christian minister who's a Muslim who didn't give up Christianity. What does it look like? You know, what do you do? Do you go to church? Do you go to the mosque? Do you do both? You know, how do you do it? And what does it mean? So I will try to answer those questions in brief today, just give you a little glimpse of the answers so far. Because, as Jamal said, I followed my heart. I made this huge leap of the heart. And my brain will be catching up for the rest of my life. One of the confirmations among my friends, people who've known me for decades, of this experience of mine is that I made this leap of the heart, which I've been known to do before. My friends know that I tend to leap in that way. But to stay, that I've stayed with it and continued to follow it and put all of the resources of this mind of mine to this path. As they watch me over these 4.5 years, it's been a confirmation to them that, yes, this woman is on the path that she should be on. So, a little bit about how it happened. So I was minding my business as a Christian minister. You know, I was doing the next indicated thing, which happened to be, at that time, since I was working in a parish that was very involved with interfaith work. And I came to that parish right in the fall of 2001. The first time I preached there was the Sunday after 9/11 to, you know, 1,000 people that morning, because everyone came out that morning to church. Part of my work, part of minding my business, my job was to present classes to my congregation to help us live into the reality of the world post 9/11. The church had been involved in interfaith work before I got there. And as a matter of fact, I kind of ruefully admit to people that until I came to that church in 2001, I had pretty much not been officially interested in interfaith work. My position was that Christians had enough to live up to in our tradition, not to have to, you know, go pretty far afield to try to live up to other people's traditions. We needed to take care of our own business, and our own business was serious and involving enough so that it would keep us busy. I'm a curious person, so over the years I had read about other traditions, I had participated in different activities of other traditions, and I was raised remarkably in a community that was an interfaith community. We were members, associate members of a community out in the country where I grew up. I grew up in southeastern Pennsylvania, and there was this wonderful cooperative community called Tangy Homesteads near where we lived that we joined, and it was an interfaith community. And I grew up celebrating Jewish holidays in addition to Christian holidays, and grew up with an experience of interfaith that I just took for granted. So I grew up without some of the barriers that people find to interfaith experience. So I just kind of took that for granted and went about my business as a Christian. So how it happened, and this is a very short form of the story, as I ran into a crisis in my life, a personal spiritual crisis in my life, where I realized that the only answer was a kind of surrender to God that meant becoming a person whose very identity was that of surrender. And I knew because I had the classes on Islam, and I had learned enough about Islam to understand what I think is the essence of Islam, or at least part of the essence of Islam, that the word Islam actually means self-surrender to God. And that a Muslim is a person who is identified by being surrendered to God. And in that experience, and this was an experience, I've had similar experiences to this experience that I had on March 25th in 2006. I've had 3 other experiences in my life that were similar to this experience. And in all of them, there was a knowing, a recognition in me that I was being invited to something. And I was being invited by the one whom I recognize as God. I knew that, and I stand on that. No one can tell me any different. And I knew that I had to become a person who was defined by surrender. That's a Muslim. I also knew enough about Islam to know how to do that. In one of the classes, the previous fall, the presenter had said, if you say the words of the Shahada, the confession of faith, with the intention of becoming a Muslim, before 2 witnesses, one of whom can be God and one of whom can be yourself, then no one can tell you you're not a Muslim. That's how you become a Muslim. So I knew I had to become a Muslim with a capital M as well. I wasn't quite sure how to do that, where to go, so I went to the same person who was the presenter that night. I remember it was here, downstairs, when I first said to him, you know, Jamal, I'm now a Muslim too. And we have a little bit of a disagreement about his reaction to that. What I saw as horror in his eyes. Like, oh my God, what have I done? But I also had the wonderful experience of approaching another Muslim, a woman, whom I met also through Jamal. And I went running over to her at an interfaith gathering about a month after I had taken my Shahada, and it was after church on Sunday, so I was still decked out in my priestly garb, and I said, I'm an Episcopal priest, and I'm also a Muslim. And she looked at me, and she looked me up and down, and she said, it's apparent that God has been very good to you. The priesthood has been good to you, and you to it. And you do not have to choose. Since that time, she and I have discussed that moment, and she said that her response to me came just totally from someplace in her that she didn't know she had. I mean, she'd never been confronted with this kind of situation before. She'd never thought about it, but it was just her recognition of truth. Wherever you turn is the face of God. So says the Quran, the holy book of Islam, and the Quran also says that the universe is brimming with clues, with signs, in the Arabic, ayat, that point to the face of the Creator. And we human beings are privileged to be so wired that we can read these signs. But it is gratitude that unleashes our capacity to make sense of those signs, to put them together into the whole story, the story of our unity in the unity, our interconnectedness. Gratitude is the key to the gate of the garden of the consciousness of our unity in the divine. To enter that garden, one Sufi poet says, look with your heart's eyes and gaze gently on these blossoms. All your doubts will fade away. Don't look for mistakes. The rose may turn into thorns. Ingratitude reveals ignorance. And the friends of the truth are truly thankful. And, well, you'll hear how spirituals are always it's one of those living traditions, so I've adapted this a little. I told Jesus it would be all right if he changed my name. I told Jesus it would be all right, it would be all right if he changed my name. I told Jesus